Good morning, Year 4. This is your PSHE lesson, and it's all about disability equality education. And we're going to have a little think about what our learning journey is. So over the next 3 weeks in PSHE, we are going to have a think about what it means to make an assumption. So think about what assumption means. So that's when you assume something without actually knowing the full details. I can reflect on the effect of language chosen to describe someone. I can reflect on ways to get to know someone, and I can think about how to welcome someone who is disabled. Right, so we're going to start off with a story, and it's called The Boy Who Grew Flowers. And so you can just relax, and I'm just going to read this story to you, and then there's going to be some questions at the end that I would like you to have a think about. Rink Bowergan was a boy from the deep country. He lived out past where the blacktop road became a dirt road, and the dirt road petered out into a little footpath. The path wound through the ancient trees of a wild forest, hopped Black Bear Creek, headed all the way up Lonesome Mountain, made a right-hand turn, and ran smack into the Bowergan's door. The Bowergans were the only folks who lived on Lonesome Mountain. The townspeople argued as to whether it was because they were such strange folk that they lived there, or whether it was because they lived there that they were such strange folk. However, everyone agreed that the Bowergan clan was a hotbed of strange and exotic talents. Rink's Uncle Dud liked to tame rattlesnakes, and his brothers and cousins were all shape-shifters. So you've got that really interesting illustration. You've got Rink's dad being fed sausages by the snake. It's all crazy. But Rink himself had the most special talent of all. During the full moon, he sprouted flowers all over his body. It was a beautiful sight, and they were the prettiest, sweetest smelling and longest lasting blossom you ever saw. Some folks might say stay home sick in bed if they happen to sprout, but not Rink. Every morning, following a full moon, his mama would gently clip the flowers from her boy, and off he would go to school. You can see the flowers there in the picture growing. Now, Rink liked school. At least he liked the thinking and reading part, but he was shy and quiet and different from the other children. So the teacher gave him a seat at the back of the room and did not bother with him. As for the children, they had all heard stories about Rink's strange relatives, so they stayed at a safe distance from him. Then Angelina Quiz came along, a girl whose family was in the ballroom dancing business and had just moved from Tuscaloosa. She was what some would call a plain girl. She had an easy manner, a luminous smile, and her right leg was shorter than the left by an inch. She always wore a flower behind her right ear. Rink liked her straight away. So did everyone else. Angelina was always surrounded by friends. Rink observed her from a distance. She is forthright and honest, yet always kind, he thought. He also admired the flowers she wore behind her ear, a different one every day, and all of them as lovely as she. As for Angelina Quiz, she soon wondered about this quiet boy who sat alone at the back of the class. So she asked the other children about him. His uncle Dud has a pet rattlesnake called Fat Lucy. It was the uncle in the previous picture. And she sleeps on the end of his bed, hissed Foster Shrimp. And his mother uses a bowling bag for a purse, giggled Shirley Ann Smeeth. And his granny was raised by wolves, sniggered Gertrude Prugg. Angelina did not laugh. Why won't anyone talk to him, she asked. The others fell silent, but the question rattled in their minds. One afternoon, the teacher announced that the school dance would be held that Saturday night at the church hall. Several of her classmates asked Angelina to go, but she smiled bravely and shook her head. I wouldn't be much of a dancing partner, she laughed. Rink was struck by the wistful note he heard in her voice. She comes from a dancing family, he thought. I bet she loves music, and I bet she'd really like to go to that dance. The minute the teacher's back was turned, Rink slipped out the door. No one noticed except Angelina, who glanced back at his empty chair every now and then. She was amazed at how his absence could take the shine off such a pretty, sunny day. When Rink reached his home, high on the lonesome mountain, he went straight to his Uncle Dod's room. He rummaged under the bed until he came up with several feet of Fat Lucy's shrucked-off skin. Next, he dug through his mum's bowling bag until he found a needle and spool of silk thread. Then, in the tumble-down shed off the kitchen, he turned up an old leather mule saddle. Rink sat down and cleared his mind. He thought intently about Angelina's feet. He pictured their shape and size and the inch of space between her right foot and the floor. Then he cut and stitched and glued. He worked right through from Thursday until Saturday morning. Wow, that's a long time. When Rink was finally done, there on the table stood the loveliest pair of snakeskin slippers that had ever been seen this side of Black Bear Creek. The sole of the right slipper was 1 inch thicker than the left, so that Angelina could stand true, straight and tall. Rink imagined her dancing. He thought that thought so long, and the feeling deep inside him was so pleasant that even though the full moon had not yet risen, he sprouted a bunch of wild pink roses from the top of his head. He was so happy. That afternoon, Rink followed the footpath down through the forest, across Black Bear Creek, along the dirt road, and onto the Blacktop Road and up the hill. Halfway up the hill, he opened a small gate and walked up the little path that led right to Angelina's front porch. Angelina was helping her mama sew up a fancy new tango dress. The whole house was quiet, and every little snip of the scissors made a sad little tweak in her heart. She thought about Rink and how she missed him at school all day Friday. When Angelina heard the knock at the door, her heart flipped. There stood Rink, with a bunch of wild pink roses in his left hand and a pair of snakeskin slippers in his right. "These are for you," he said as he offered the slippers to her. "If you wear those, you'll dance just fine." Angelina wriggled her bare toes into the slippers. Then and there, for the first time in her life, she felt herself stand up straight. She took one step, then another, and then she did a little practice dance step. Angelina looked at Rink with delight. "Will you be my dancing partner?" she asked. "I don't know how to do that kind of dancing," said Rink shyly. "I'll teach you," cried Angelina. "I've watched my family so many times. I know all of the steps by heart." She took his hand and they danced together down the path. After the dance, Rink walked Angelina home. They stopped on the way and sat under an old buttonball tree. Angelina told Rink about her family, and he told her about his. Then, with a pounding heart, he revealed to her the fact that he sprouted flowers all over himself during the full moon. Angelina just smiled with delight. Then she bent down and showed Rink where the flower she wore grew right out from behind her ear. Right, so that's the story. There's a little inscription for my brother Wally, because you were there to show me what makes us different is what makes us wonderful. So it's a book about difference. So I want you to think all the way back to the learning journey and think about, how does the story link? Okay, so how does it link to assumptions? If you assume something, if you've maybe heard a rumour like the other children had about Rink, they'd made assumptions about him and his family. Maybe think about what your thoughts are. If you just reflect, now I've read the story, what do you think it's all about? Can you think about what happened in the beginning and the middle and the end? And how do you think Angelina felt when she first joined the school? And how did the children feel about Rink? Can you just think through those questions? You don't necessarily need to write anything down, although if it helps you, you can. And so what do you think are the big ideas in the story? So there's a list in the orange words, and I would like you to think about which big ideas you would pick from the list which matched the story. Is the story about courage? Is it about welcoming someone maybe? Is it about difference? Is it about kindness? Is it about friendship or fear or rejection or greed or beauty or war or love and fairness and hate? Maybe if you look at that list and maybe if you can pick out 3 or 4 that you think that are the big ideas in the story, what is it about? And finally, what I would like you to do, ready for this afternoon's Zoom, is I would like you to think of a question for us to discuss. So, about the book. So it could be, why didn't the children like Rink? It could be, I wonder if the other children liked Rink and Angelina once they realised they became friends. Is it always right to judge somebody because the children did, because of their family or because of a difference? Okay, so you think of your own question, make sure you write it down so you're clear, and then in this afternoon's Zoom we can discuss that question. Okay, well done. I hope you enjoyed the story and I look forward to seeing you this afternoon on Zoom.